With the new season of For Honor, we have a brand new hero skin, and though the developers didn't confess to it outright, the moment I saw her, my first thought was not of the Jorogumo, but of a historical individual. One of the most influential and famous Onabu geisha in history, and a woman whose legend has defined the image of women warriors in Japan. It is my belief that the For Honor developers borrowed not only her appearance, but also her legend when crafting the hero skin of Lady Saori. So welcome everyone to a semi-heroes in history. Ordinarily, I only do this with heroes in the game, not skins, but this kind of stuck out to me in a big way, and because the developers didn't outright mention it, I felt duty-bound to at least address the historical connection. Don't expect me to do a lot of these, but let's talk about the historical influence of Lady Saori, who I believe to be Tomoe Gozen. Now, there are a few things we need to start off with before we go too far with this. The first is that Tomoe Gozen's very existence is actually a topic of discussion. Though she is mentioned in the Tale of Heiki, or Heiki Monogatari, she's only referenced once as having served with under Minamoto no Yoshinaka during the Genpei War in the Heian period, and she's not mentioned in any other historical chronicles. This is further made problematic by the fact that the Tale of Heiki, while a decent source for historical intrigue, and it does mention real historical figures and events, it mixes its history with fantasy and legend quite frequently. For example, when describing Tomoe, the Tale of Heiki describes her as, quote, especially beautiful, with white skin, long hair, and charming features. She was also a remarkably strong archer, and as a swordsman, she was a warrior worth 1,000, ready to confront a demon or a god, mounted or on foot. End quote. So it's important to recognize that all of what we talk about here is definitely up for speculation at the very least. So with that said, let's get into the figure herself. Tomoe Gozen. Roughly translated, this means Lady Tomoe, as Gozen is not actually a name, but a title or honorific. Another slight tie to Lady Saori, perhaps? You could potentially call her Sauri Gozen if you wanted, and it would still work. There are other examples of women in history with this title, such as Aya Gozen, the mother of Uesugi Kagekatsu, and Tsuchihara Gozen, mother of Oda Nobunaga. However, what we can surmise from this honorific is that she was of noble stock and was indeed samurai, not a mere peasant. To better understand her place in the Genpei War, you need to know the basics of the war itself and a few key players. The Genpei War was a 5-year-long war in Japan from 1180 to 1185 during the Heian period. The name Genpei comes from the alternative readings of the two clan names that took part in the war. The Minamoto, which can be read sometimes as Gen, and the Taira, read sometimes as Hei, which is where we get the term Heian period. The Taira and the Minamoto were longtime rivals, and though the Taira had maintained a long-time control of the Japanese government, this war would see the end of it with a massive Minamoto rebellion and, in the end, victory over the Taira. This war ended the Heian period and started the Kamakura period. This was also the period when the shogunate took full control of the government and samurai became the ruling class. Yeah, you can thank the Minamoto for that. Now, we can't go into the full details of the Genpei War here because we'd be here forever. For now, let's just focus on two cousins, Minamoto no Yoshinaka and Minamoto no Yoshitsune, two complete polar opposites personality-wise. They were both Minamoto, but Yoshinaka was far too ambitious for his own good. Having been shamed as a child and as a young man by his cousins of higher station, Yoshinaka had plans to take Kyoto before the rest of his family and conquer Japan himself. Then he could rule the family himself as the head of the Minamoto family. Yoritomo, the actual head of the family, couldn't let this happen, so he sent his two brothers, Yoshitsune and Noriyori, to go and kill Yoshinaka and his whole army at Owazu. It is here that Tomoe Gozen finally enters the scene. The Heiki Monogatari claims that she was Yoshinaka's first captain, that he would send her out to battle armed with, quote, strong armor, an oversized sword, and a mighty bow. And she was one of the few of Yoshinaka's captains who remained when others fled. She was there battling viciously, resisting the forces of Yoshinaka's enemies, but when it became clear that Yoshinaka would lose, he is said to have told her, quote, you are a woman, so be off with you. Go wherever you please. I intend to die in battle or kill myself if I am wounded. It would be unseemly to let people see that Lord Kiso, another name he called himself, kept a woman with him during his last battle. End quote. Now, before any of you scream, sexist, keep in mind, she was allowed to fight with him in the first place. The issue here was that Yoshinaka wanted to die with as much honor and dignity as possible. Having a woman's corpse with his own would make him appear weak, like he was trying to hide behind a woman and let her die instead of himself. See, back in this time, there was still some form of, you could call it chivalry in Japanese codes of honor, where you're meant to fight and die yourself, not hide behind other people to do it for you. He wanted his honor and dignity to stay intact, and he was worried that despite her skill as a warrior, they would look at a woman dying by his side as weakness. Tomoe herself was hesitant to leave, as she wanted one last chance to prove her loyalty and strength to Yoshinaka. So she looked out at the enemy and saw a group of 30 horse-bound warriors approaching, led by a famously strong warrior named Onda no Hachiro Moroshige. Swiftly, she rode up alongside Moroshige, grabbed him and hurled him from his horse before landing beside him and slicing his head from his body. She then mounted her horse in the midst of the battle and fled for the eastern provinces. After that, she isn't mentioned again. It's unsure what became of her. Some have ventured guesses that she became a Buddhist nun. Others say that she was captured and perhaps killed by the Minamoto, but no one is 100% sure what became of Tomoe Gozen. As for Yoshinaka himself, he would flee the battlefield and attempt to take his own life, but according to the legend, his horse became trapped in half-frozen mud and was slowed, causing the forces of Yoshitsune to catch up to him and kill him themselves. He did not get the honorable death he so wanted. But that's about all we have on Tomoe Gozen as it is told from the Heike Monogatari. It's very little I know, but the story has had a profound impact on Japan and pop culture as a whole. Art and depictions of Tomoe Gozen are very popular, and in many of them she is portrayed the same way. White porcelain face, wielding a long sword or naginata, riding on horseback, striking down and deep into the enemy's ranks. Tomoe has been upheld as a near mythical symbol and example of true loyalty and womanly valor. Some have tried to interpret further into Tomoe's story by claiming that she was the wife or lover to Yoshinaka, such as in the Fate Grand Order timeline. However, this is neither confirmed nor denied by history. What we do know is that her impact on Japanese culture and art has been verified. Many look to Tomoe as a symbol of what a woman warrior should look like and aspire to be. Renditions of her are not only shown in art, plays, and songs, but also in live parades and performances, as well as in books, video games, and anime. Though Tomoe is stated to have carried a larger-than-average sword in the legend, many have interpreted this to actually refer to a naginata polearm, as it is the most popular and prominent weapon of Onabu geisha, and in Japan today, it is still a widely respected and practiced martial weapon favored by women. So, now that we have the historical aspects down, let's compare Tomoe Gozen to Saori, shall we? First of all, their stories are actually somewhat similar. Both are forced to take a final stand against an invading army, facing impossible odds, and yet still hold their ground and fight viciously in the defense and honor of their sovereign lord. The difference is that Tomoe eventually did flee the battle, while Saori gave in to some darker power within her. Appearance-wise, both are strikingly similar, aren't they? There are a few Tomoe images and costumes I've seen that look almost one-to-one to Saori's look. Plus, the look does fit, as she matches the Heike Monogatari's description. Beautiful with white skin, long hair, charming features. Now, as for her attire, the Monogatari describes her as wearing strong armor, and Saori certainly is more minimalist. She wears a do cuirass under an open long kimono and an obi sash belt. Of particular note to me is that diadem or crown that she's wearing. I have not seen this crown on many depictions of Tomoe, but I have seen it most frequently on the geisha Fuketeru of Miyagawa-cho when she portrays Tomoe Gozen for the Jidai Matsuri festival in Kyoto. So if you've seen this crown, it's probably because you've seen it on this geisha who is basically dressing up as her. So I'd bet that's where For Honor got the idea of using it, and I have no problem with that. It looks very gorgeous. It looks beautiful. But if you look at other art and depictions of Tomoe Gozen, usually you see her wearing heavy armor. So probably the biggest difference between Lady Saori and Tomoe Gozen overall is that Lady Saori is wearing much more minimalist armor, whereas Tomoe Gozen is usually shown wearing heavier armor. Needless to say, though, I would argue that it's pretty clear what historical influence For Honor was drawing from when designing Saori, or Saori Gozen, if you'd rather. And I don't have any issue with that at all. Quite the contrary. My only real issue is that For Honor didn't explicitly say it when they've said it before. So, I ask you now, what do you guys think? Do you think I'm right on the money with this interpretation? Do you think that Lady Saori is similar to Tomoe Gozen? What do you think of Tomoe Gozen's story now that we've discussed it and I've laid it out for you? Do you think that she's a woman worthy of her reputation? And do you think that Saori does a good job of representing that representation and legendary status of Tomoe Gozen? Or do you even care? Let me all know down in the comment section down below. Would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you all so much, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.